Hello, and welcome to my attempt to do a bit of work this morning. It's 9:15. I'm in the UK. I'm working on my third novel. Not that any of them have been published. Called Empress of the Trees. I have set myself a target or a goal to finish this second draft by the end of July. It's going rather well, but then I'm not working. I've got a couple of weeks off work, so obviously I will get more done when I haven't got to sort of juggle work commitments with this as well. So what was my aim today? Well, yesterday I went through chapter 10 on the live stream and did a screen edit. I've now got a paper copy which I'm going to read through. I have noticed that when I'm reading through, sometimes I gabble. So it's not that easy for anybody watching to understand. So if anybody sees me doing that, just sort of stick a little note on the group chat. Go, you're gabbling, because it's better if you can actually hear what I'm saying. If you look at the QR code in the corner there, that's links to all of my social media, including this, and also including a lovely Discord server. And if you would like to physically come and talk to me, we can do audio or video, but audio is better. You can actually look at there's a voice channel at the bottom of the server called Twitch Streams Live. And that little noise you just heard was me connecting it. So anybody can come in and have a natter with me if they want to, or they can interact through the text available through this, which I'm just going to check is working. Oh, I've been trying to do it in the style of a fast food chain, but I'm already running out. What other fast food chains? I did Muck Test yesterday, Kentucky Fried Test. Not very relevant unless you're not in the UK. Oh, and it's not coming up on the... Oh, there it is. Right, so yeah. So anyway, I'm just going to crack on now. I'm going to just read through chapter 10. You will be able to see it on screen. Oh, I haven't set up my control console. Hang on. There we go. I've set up my control console. Yeah, you won't be able to see what I'm actually editing unless I actually change something on the text. Because the way I work at this point is I'm just reading it and correcting it from the paper, but only if I correct something or change something will I then go to the screen. This is a longer chapter, this one. So what I'm hoping to do in this session is sign off chapter 10, 21 pages, so it's quite a long one, and then do a screen read through of chapter 11. Now, I did have a glance at chapter 11 last night, and it needs a little bit more work than some of the others. It's a bit more chaotic. There's some... and I need to kind of, I think, explain why things are chaotic in that chapter, maybe preempt it a little bit in the run-up to it, and kind of get Gordon Oakley's excuses in. Anyway, let's go to this view. So you will see... I need a bookmark. Where's my bookmark? Oh, there it is. As I say, what's on the screen will not reflect because I'm working from paper. But anyway, so Chapter 10, Forest Lodge. Just after the sunset, there was a knock on the door of Ursula's cottage. Ursula peeked out, then opened the door fully as she recognised the man at the door. She led him through into her living room. "Ronnie, this is Mr. Oakley." Ronnie stood and looked at the newcomer. He was a couple of inches taller than she was and had a bit of a round stomach, which poked out from under his blue raincoat and grey jumper. His hair was dark with streaks of silver and of medium length parted in the middle. I just need to knows something, because I've got an idea that Ronnie's quite tall. She's 5'9", but I want to know how tall a certain actor is that in my head is this character. So let me just Google that. Oh, that's not very useful. 1.83. I think that's... Hey Siri, what's 1.83 metres in feet and inches?
1.83 metres is 6 feet.
So that's about right. Okay. Great, he said. His voice was coarse and deep. Now I'm a babysitter. I'm Veronica Arden, she said. I'm the ambassador to Idrisil, Empress of the Trees. She raised her hand shakies. You can call me Ronnie. I'm Gordon Oakley, your housekeeper, protector and general handyman. Hopefully I won't be changing your nappies. I'm not sure I want to say that. Maybe I'll just put something like you look younger than I expected. I'm Gordon Oakley, housekeeper, protector, general handyman. You look younger than I expected. And I don't want to be changing any nappies. Ronnie could not tell if he was serious. Well, obviously he doesn't expect to be changing nappies. She's 20, so... I'm going to lose the nappies comment. I'm Gordon Oakley, your housekeeper, protector and general handyman. You look younger than I expected. I'm not sure the minister is going to be able to take you seriously. Okay, let's lose that. I'm Gordon Oakley, your housekeeper, protector and general handyman. You look a lot younger than I expected. I'm not sure the minister's going to be able to take you seriously. He looked her up and down with a frown on his face, which then broke into... No, let's lose the smile. He looked her up and down with a frown on his face. You can call me Oi You. He turned to Ursula. Are you ready? Ursula smiled. My bag is in the hall. Oakley nodded, then turned to Ronnie. I guess you don't have any other clothes? Ronnie shook her head. She had not noticed a bag that he was carrying. Happy birthday, he said gruffly. We leave as soon as you've changed. Wear the hood up. Ronnie walked into the spare room and opened the bag. It contained... Oh, good morning. Sorry, I'm world on my own as normal. Just cracking on with this. How are you? Oh, mind you, it's almost lunchtime for you, isn't it? Well, not almost, but not far off. Oh, hello, Bow Street Society. Oh, do you know, that hasn't happened for a while, has it? That hasn't happened for a while. Let me just have a look. See, again, but then I checked, because I always check now as soon as... And it was there. And actually, the previous day's one switched to invisible as well, after you'd listened to it, because I saw the like. Let me just have a look. Oh, how bizarre. It's just not transferred at all. Oh, yes, it has. It's locked. Right, unlocking it now. Thank you for letting me know. Cool, yeah. It was there last night and it's there again now. Sorry about that. It has... I was weirdly, and I... Just having the thought obviously jinxed it. I sat there thinking, that hasn't happened for a while. Cool. Right, I shall crack on. Ronnie walked into the spare room and opened the bag. It contained a pair of combat trousers as well as a white t-shirt and a plain green hoodie. No, I need to just as well as. Thank you. Happy birthday, he said gruffly. We leave as soon as you've changed. Wear the hood up. Ronnie walked into the spare room and opened the bag. It contained a pair of combat trousers, a white t-shirt, a plain green hoodie, and a pair of trainers. No underwear or socks or anything like that, but it would do for now. Lose the have to. Ronnie slipped off the dressing gown and changed quickly into the new clothes. The trousers were the size she'd worn for years. Until September, anyway. Well, until September. Let's just change that. The trousers were the size she'd worn until September. They were a little loose on her, but luckily Oakley had anticipated this, and there was a belt in the bag too. She threaded it through the belt loops and then looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked almost as she expected. Let's italicise the almost. Are you done yet? I'm not going to do that voice every time because that's going to hurt my throat. Are you done yet? Oakley called through the door. Instead of replying, she stepped out of the room and was startled to see that Oakley had a revolver in his hand. Is that strictly necessary? She asked. You can't be too careful, replied Oakley. He slipped his hand and the gun into his coat pocket. You take Ursula's bag, he said to Ronnie. We need to go straight to the car, now. They left the house through the front door. Ursula locked it behind her, and they all walked quickly down the forest path to the car park. There was not a person in sight. Ronnie had to carry the large wheelie case. The wheels were no good on the forest floor, and it was relatively heavy. She watched Oakley as they made the short walk. He was looking all around them and making sure that they were not seen. She kept watching Oakley as they made the short walk. He was looking around them. He was constantly looking around them to make sure they were not noticed. That's better. She watched Oakley as they made the short walk. He was constantly looking around them to make sure they were not noticed. Okay. The car was a Mercedes with tinted windows. Ronnie was surprised by this. She'd expected something less like a big black tank. Oakley ushered the ladies into the back seat, slammed the doors, then opened the boot, heaved Ursula's large bag into it and closed it again. He sat quickly in the driver's seat, locked all of the doors, then started the engine. The large car reversed until it faced the exit onto the main road, which was clear. Oakley turned the vehicle onto it, accelerating gently. Ronnie looked out of the window and watched the familiar road from the comfort of her seat. She wondered if she would ever see this place again. Maybe it instead of this place? She closed her eyes and allowed an image of Danny to enter her mind. That look on his face when he said goodbye for the final time. She wished she had not thought of him because her reaction was to well up with tears. She fought against it as she did not want to cry in front of Oakley. The car drove into Mansfield and past the road that led to Mendel. There were too many memories and Ronnie was exhausted, so she closed her eyes and tried to sleep. The car had departed from Ursula's cottage at just after 8 o'clock. Ronnie slept. There's a lot of justs in that sentence. Ronnie slept for over an hour before waking up as the car pulled into a service station on the M6. Is it okay if I ask where we're heading and how long it will take? Ronnie finally piped up the courage to ask. Her stomach was making loud noises, and she was surprised they could not hear it over the radio. No, she wasn't. That's just a stupid thing to say. Let's just lose that. Is it okay if I ask where we're heading and how long it will take? Ronnie finally piped up the courage to ask. Her stomach was making loud noises. Right now, Costa, said Oakley. And of course it's okay for you to ask. You're not a bloody prisoner. Late tonight we will arrive at Forest Lodge, which is close to Ambleside in the Lake District. We will get there at about 11:30. Do you know the area? Vaguely, said Ronnie. I remember a family holiday when I was late. We went to Lake Windermere. Yes, we're not far from there, said Oakley. He found a parking space close to the main entrance of the services and drove the car in. Does anybody want anything? Not now, dear, said Ursula. Oakley nodded and looked at Ronnie. You're still recovering from your close encounter of the arboreal kind. Are you hungry? Ravenous, admitted Ronnie. Oakley frowned. I should have brought some food with me, sorry. What can I get you? Ronnie was not sure what she should ask for. I don't mind. Sandwich or something? Vegan, please. You don't need to be modest, snapped Oakley. We're here to look after your needs, and that includes your dietary ones. I'd let you come out with me, but I'm not sure that's a good idea for now. What do you want? Ronnie was not sure. I don't know. Oakley rolled his eyes. I'll get a selection of stuff. Personally, I like donuts. He looked down his stomach. You can probably tell. Ronnie did not feel she knew him well enough to make a joke, so she just nodded. Right, well, it goes without saying not to go wandering off, he said. I won't be long. Oakley stepped out of the car and slammed the door behind him, using the key fob to lock the door. A few minutes later, he returned with a bag containing snacks, sandwiches, and a box of 12 Krispy Kreme donuts. He threw the bag onto the passenger seat, then climbed in, putting his coffee in the cup holder by the gear stick. He handed the bag across to Ronnie and smiled. It's all suitable for vegans. Don't be modest. Have as little or as much as you like. Just save me one of the chocolate orange donuts. His smile faded as he started the car. They're the orange ones. The journey continued. Ronnie ate 6 of the donuts and 2 of the sandwiches, acutely aware of Oakley watching her in the rearview mirror. When he was ready, she handed him the donut that he had asked for, which he devoured in 3 bites. As they got closer to Forest Lodge, she noticed an urge to go outside for a walk. It was like a magnetic pull gnawing away at the back of her consciousness. At just before 11:30 that evening, the car pulled up in front of some tall gates. There was a 10-foot barbed wire topped wall on either side of them. Oakley used a remote fob on his key, and the gates swung open automatically. Ronnie watched the car headlights pick out a long driveway that twisted around tree trunks for about a third of a mile before opening out into a clearing. Before them was a large house, quite modern looking, with 3 stories. To the right was a separate triple garage, the door of which was slowly opening as they approached it. Ronnie could see a white van and a much smaller car already parked in there. Oakley parked the giant Mercedes between them and turned off the engine. The garage door was closing automatically behind them. Oakley climbed out and opened the car door for Ursula, then Ronnie. "Welcome to Forest Lodge," he said. "We will show you around in the morning. There are far more bedrooms than we will ever realistically need, and you can choose whichever one you want tomorrow. I'll put you in a guest room for tonight." He led them out of the garage's side door and up the stairs to the main entrance, which was a heavy oak double door. A heavy oak double door? I changed this yesterday. I'm still not sure which is the best way of saying that. But heavy double oak door. No, it's not double oak, it's a double door. Heavy oak double door. Ronnie looked around. She could see CCTV cameras everywhere. She wondered if they were there to protect her or to watch her. She looked around. I've already said she looked around in the previous sentence. Let's just lose that. The urge to explore outside had grown considerably, and try as she had to put it to the back of her mind, it was still there. The main hall was dramatic. There was a large detached flight of stairs at the rear that formed a semicircle that led up to the first floor. The rear windows, which she assumed overlooked a garden, were large and stretched up to the next floor. On the left of them was a double door, one of which was open. A tall person was standing there wearing skinny jeans and a polo shirt. They were about 5'9" in height and had a slight olive tint to their skin. Their hair was long and tied back in a plait. They were skinny but looked strong at the same time. Ronnie assumed that they were in their late 20s. Also, they were glowing slightly, which was unnerving. The person gave a small smile. "Marianne," said Oakley. "This is Veronica Arden, Idrisil's ambassador for England. Veronica, this is Marianne. I'd like to say she's our cook and cleaner, but they're also a bit of a technical and mechanical whiz, so we share those duties between us." Marianne stepped forward and smiled. They had a genuine warmth about them that Oakley lacked. "Welcome to Forest Lodge. I understand that you were reborn yesterday, so you will probably be hungry. There is a spread laid out for you in the kitchen. Please follow me." Right, how does that read? Marianne stepped forward and smiled. They had a genuine warmth about them that Oakley lacked. Welcome to Forest Lodge. I understand you were reborn yesterday, so you will probably be hungry. There is a spread laid out for you in the kitchen. Please follow me. The voice took Ronnie somewhat by surprise. The person before her looked, I'm not going to say female, I'm going to say feminine. But the voice was a little deeper than she had expected. She mentally banked the question for when she knew Marianne better. Is that all right? Yeah. Just one thing, said Oakley. Is there any word from Carruthers? Marianne shook their head. I would have texted you as soon as I heard anything if there was. Well, it won't be long, said Oakley. He took his coat off and slung it on the hat stand by the door. Right, I have stuff to do. Just holler if you need me. He gave a smile which briefly transformed his face, then walked up the stairs. Ursula stepped forward and hugged Marianne. Nice to see you, dear. Are you well? Marianne smiled. I'm good. Never thought this day would come. No. Hoped this day wouldn't come. Hoped this day wouldn't come, but I'm okay. Which day? Asked Ronnie curiously. The day where Idrisil felt she would need to issue her directives, sighed Marianne. You know everything about what's happening? I don't know why I don't put contractions in. I really don't. You know everything about what's happening? Asked Ronnie. Of course she does, said Ursula. Imagine trying to keep all of this secret from the people working with us. Did you choose the Yakunda deliberately? Asked Ronnie as they walked through the door at the back of the hall. It led to a huge kitchen. There was a large freestanding unit in the middle, and next to the wall by the doors they'd just come through was a large dining table, big enough to comfortably seat 8, which was covered with a buffet that Marianne had put together. It looked large enough to cater for a party of 10, not just Ronnie and Ursula. Behind them was a wide stone staircase that spiralled down into a cellar. There was a doorway to another room just behind it, to the left side of the house. At the back, towards the front of the building, was a snug, an area with soft chairs all around the outside and another table in the middle. Of course, replied Ursula. And if the worst comes to the worst, Marianne has already been chosen as one of the selected survivors. Ronnie felt a coldness spread over her when Ursula said, Oh God, I'm reading it off the screen. You should be reading it off paper. Right, let me go back. Just one thing, said Oakley. Is there any word from Carruthers? Marianne shook their head. I would have texted you as soon as I'd heard anything if there was. Well, it won't be long, said Oakley. He took his coat off and slung it on the hat stand by the door. Right, I've stuff to do. Just holler if you need me. He gave a smile which briefly transformed his face, then walked up the stairs. Ursula stepped forward and hugged Marianne. Nice to see you, dear. Are you well? Marianne smiled. I'm good. I never thought this day would come, but I'm okay. No, that's not what I said, is it? I hoped this day wouldn't come. Would. Never. Not wouldn't. Which day? Asked Ronnie curiously. The day where Idrisil felt she would need to issue her directives, sighed Marianne. No, she wouldn't sigh. She would say. They would say, sorry. You know everything about what's happening? Asked Ronnie. Of course she does, dear, said Ursula. Imagine trying to keep all of this a secret from the people working with us. Did you choose a Yakunda deliberately? Asked Ronnie as they walked through the door at the back of the hall. It led to a huge kitchen. There was a large freestanding unit in the middle, and next to the wall by the doors they'd just come through was a large... Okay, a lot of larges, so I'm going to say grand. Dining table, big enough to comfortably seat 8, which was covered the buffet that Marianne had put together. It looked big. It looked lavish. There we go. That's better. It looked lavish enough to cater for a party of 10, not just Ronnie and Ursula. Behind them was a wide stone staircase that spiralled down into a cellar. There was a doorway to another room just behind it to the left side of the house. At the back, towards the front of the building, was a snug, and there were soft chairs all around the outside and another table in the middle. Of course, replied Ursula, and if the worst comes to the worst, Marion has already been chosen as one of the selected survivors. Ronnie felt a coldness spread over when Ursula said this. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Yes, said Ursula, let's hope. The two of them picked up a plate each and started to fill them with items of food. Marianne beamed and made them some drinks. A few minutes later, Oakley joined them. When we're done, your room is ready for tonight, he said. I'll show you where it is. You will sleep well tonight. Tomorrow, I'll show you around the place. He took a plate and smiled at Marianne. Thank you, he said, as he helped himself to some food. Ronnie was extremely tired, so once she'd eaten, she followed Oakley up the curved staircase to the first floor. This also looked opulent. As she climbed the steps, she was faced with a large open hallway with a window overlooking the front garden at the far end. From where she stood at the top of the stairs, there were a set of double doors to the left, presumably to the master bedroom. There were also doors ahead of her on either side of the window, and Oakley led her to the one on the left. Inside the room, the front wall was dominated by imposing windows that jutted out slightly. There was a double bed that had been made up and a dressing table. A white dressing gown and a towel were laid out on the bed. White dressing gown and a towel were laid out on the bed. Unlike at Ursula's, neither had been liberated from a hotel. Wow, said Ronnie. The room was of great size, so the master bedroom over the hall must be very impressive indeed. She looked around her, then walked back to the door and looked out onto the hall. Where's the bathroom? Oakley gave a small chuckle. Each room has its own. He pointed to a door behind them. On the wall opposite the windows. There's a shower in there as well, should you want it. He pointed to a laptop on the dressing table. That is also set up for you. It's already connected to the internet, and there are card details in there so you can buy any clothes that you need. There's no specific budget, but just don't go crazy. Ronnie was a little overwhelmed. It's all rather a lot to take in. Oakley's expression softened a little. Lots of littles. Oakley's expression softened, and he allowed himself a smile. I know. I'm going to sleep now too, but I'll be up early in the morning if you need anything. Also, the fridge in the kitchen is full. If you get hungry, just help yourself. He looked around the large room. You probably feel the urge to get out of here and explore right now. You are free to do so whenever you want, but I would suggest trying to get some sleep first and do that in the morning. Ronnie nodded. There is one thing I'd like to do, if that's okay. Oakley sighed and looked at her. Go on. I broke my friend Danny's phone earlier. He wanted to call my parents. Is there any chance I can replace it? Oakley nodded. Let me sort that out tomorrow. You can order anything to be delivered here, but if we have anything sent elsewhere, I have it billed to a different address. You can't be too careful. Daniel Huxley, right? Ronnie nodded. How do you know? I did my research. Anyway, good night. Oakley quietly withdrew from the room. Ronnie gazed out of the windows for a moment, then pulled the curtains closed. She looked back at the bed and grinned. She had rarely slept in a double bed. She was suddenly very tired, so she pulled back the covers and lay down. She was asleep within moments. She had no time to either switch off the bedside lamp or even to pull the covers back over herself. Ronnie woke, and for a moment was disoriented. She looked around the room, then recalled what had happened yesterday. She allowed her thoughts to linger on Danny and her parents for a moment, then she tried to put them out of her mind. There was no point dwelling on the past, and like it or not, they were now part of her past. She stood up and noticed there was another bag at the foot of her bed. It contained fresh clothes identical to the one she was wearing, and still no underwear or socks. Ronnie went into the bathroom. She had not even looked in there last night, and had a shower, putting the fresh clothes on, and had a shower. I don't even need that sentence. Ronnie went into the bathroom, had a shower, after which put the fresh clothes on, although she was not bored with her hoodie, since it was warm enough in the room. Not knowing where to put the clothes, she had been wearing, she stuffed them into the bag along with the untouched laptop and her trainers and opened the door. The hallway was no less impressive the second time she entered it. She walked across to the balcony and looked down the semicircular stairs and through the giant windows that stretched across both floors behind it. The rear garden had a nice lawn with a fountain in the middle, surrounded by bushes. It makes it sound like the fountain surrounded and the perimeter was surrounded by bushes. That's better. There was a pagoda built from wood with red roof tiles covering it at the top, and there was some garden furniture out there as well. In a few weeks, when the weather improved, the garden would be an impressive breakfast. Impressive breakfast. That's just badly worded. A few weeks weather improved, the garden would be a lovely place for breakfast. Behind all of this was a mid-level fence, beyond which the forest started. She walked carefully down the stairs and remembered her urge to explore from yesterday. The compulsion was still strong. Let's change that one to desire. She walked carefully down the stairs and remembered her desire to explore from yesterday. The compulsion was still strong, but so was her urge to eat. There were 2 single doors out into the garden, one of which she tried, but it was locked. There was a sudden whir and a click, and when she tried the door again, it was unlocked. She smiled, but closed in front of her and continued to the kitchen. The door clicked, no doubt locked again. She could almost hear an exasperated, "For God's sake, girl, make up your bloody mind," echoing through her head. Ronnie turned right through the double doors and into the kitchen. Opposite was a sink area before some windows, and in front of that was the freestanding unit. She had not noticed last night that it contained an electric hob, and Marianne was standing between the sink and the unit, frying some eggs and bacon. They gave Ronnie a cheery smile as she entered. "Can I make you some breakfast?" they asked. Ronnie frowned. "I don't like the idea of you doing stuff for me," she said. "Well, I'm already cooking for Mr. Oakley," said Marianne with a smile, "and for myself. Fried egg on toast with bacon. It'll be easy to do something for you as well." Marianne cracked another egg into the frying pan and prodded the thick bacon which was sizzling in the fat. "You're vegan, I believe? I have plenty of options for you." "OK, yes please," said Ronnie. "Where do you eat?" "In the snug," replied Marianne. Ronnie lifted the laptop from the bag. "Is it OK if I set up here?" she asked. "I need to order some clothes. Mr. Oakley seems to have an aversion to knickers and socks." Ronnie walked over and sat herself down in the snug and opened the laptop. She browsed some websites until she found the clothing item See, now I'm gabbling. Ronnie walked over and sat herself down in the snug and opened the laptop. She browsed some websites until she found the clothes that she wanted. She ordered plenty of underwear and socks, as well as t-shirts, trousers and hoodies. Marianne was approaching with a tray containing 2 plates and 2 large glasses of freshly squeezed orange juice. Vegan fry. Marianne was approaching with a tray containing 2 plates and 2 large glasses of fresh squeezed orange juice. I've done you a plant-based fry-up, they said as they put the plate in front of her. What other clothes will I need? Ronnie asked. Shoes? Coats? Have you ordered any of those? No, good point. What about business dress? I assume I'll need to wear something more than casual stuff when I'm talking to government people. Not if, because we know she will. When I'm talking to government people. We have a tailor who will do all of that for you, said Marianne, who picked up a mobile phone, sent a short text message, and then returned to the workstation to collect a third plate and glass. Mr. Oakley will be joining us shortly. Marianne sat down next to Ronnie and took a sip of orange juice. Ronnie watched them and noticed a bulge in their throat that resembled an Adam's apple. She also noticed... I've already said a bit about the voice. Ronnie watched them notice a bulge in their throat that resembled an Adam's apple. She smiled. Thank you for the food. Do you mind if I ask you something? Marianne glanced at her and gave a sideways smile. Go ahead. What pronoun should I use to address you? Marianne smiled. Ursula said you were smart. I identify as non-binary, and I prefer they and them. I think they are going to say thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. The door behind the entrance to the spiral staircase that led downstairs to, presumably a basement, opened, and Oakley walked in. Don't need the word downstairs there. The door behind the entrance to the spiral staircase that led to, presumably a basement, opened, and Oakley walked in. He was wearing... Let's just lose that, because that's just confusing and unnecessary. The door behind the entrance to the spiral staircase opened, and Oakley walked in. Why is it doing that? I don't want it to do that, stupid phone. He was wearing similar clothes to yesterday, only with a navy blue tie that had not been present the evening before. Thank you, he said as he sat down to his breakfast. He gulped the orange juice, then applied salt and pepper to his food. He looked up at Ronnie. Hello, he said gruffly. I've arranged a new phone for Daniel. It was an iPhone, was it not? Yes, said Ronnie, an 8, I think. Well, now he's got a free upgrade, said Oakley, attacking his breakfast with gusto. It's directly from the manufacturer, so he should just be able to move his old SIM card across. He took a mouthful of food, then looked back at her. Did you sleep well? I did, said Ronnie, thanks. Once you've eaten, I will show you around, he said. You have a choice to make. I don't know if Ursula told you, but there will be 2 of you here. The lad from Scotland is still getting his briefing from Idrisil. So as you got here first, you have the choice of which bit of the house you want to live in. There's the top floor, which is bloody huge, by the way, or the master suite on the first floor. Not as big, but just as nice. Where do you sleep? Asked Ronnie curiously. There's an annex over the garage, said Oakley. They finished, and I said... I'm just going to say they finished breakfast in silence. Then Ronnie opened the laptop and ordered some more items online. There had been a note stuck to the inside of the screen only to buy from specific websites, even if the clothes were more expensive. Oakley pulled out his phone once he submitted her order and glanced down at the confirmation email. He said, you have been modest. Perhaps you and I are going to get along. He stood up once his food was finished, picked up his plate, utensils and glass, and walked through the door behind the spiral descending staircase. Marianne smiled. Ignore his gruff exterior. He decided he liked you before he even met you based on what Ursula told him. We are a bit more worried about Mackenzie. He's your Scottish counterpart. The people that adopted him, Marianne paused, he's a screwed up kid. It's not his fault. But his handler and Oakley are worried about him. Handler? Asked Ronnie. Is that Carruthers? Marianne nodded and a smile crossed their face. Does that mean Ursula is my handler? Marianne grinned. It's a horrible word, isn't it? They said. That's Mr. Oakley all over for you. He doesn't always think of the impact of what he says. Oakley had walked back in at this point. What have I done now? Marianne poked their tongue out at him. You called me she when you introduced me last night. Oakley looked crestfallen. Christ, he said. I'm sorry. I don't mean anything by it. You do know that. I don't mean anything by it. You know I don't. I do know that, admitted Marianne, and we will never get Ursula to get it right. We'll never get Ursula to get it right. Rightio. No, not rightio, just right. Right, said Oakley, turning to Ronnie. Are you ready for the guided tour? Ronnie nodded. Follow me, then. We will start with the basement. Oakley took Ronnie on a tour of the house. Firstly, they descended the spiral staircase from the kitchen. The space below was meant to be a wine cellar, but it had been extensively refitted. On the right, at the bottom of the stairs, was a wooden wine rack that covered the whole wall from floor to ceiling. At the far end, there was even a walk-in wine fridge that was full of champagne and sparkling wine. The rest of the space was given over to a gymnasium. It had a treadmill, a stepper, and an exercise bike, as well as a rack full of weights and a couple of benches. Ronnie gasped when she saw all of it. On the far right was a door which Oakley took her through. There was a room beyond. That was larger than the space she'd already seen in the basement, which had a large projector built into the ceiling and a screen that dominated the wall at the far end. There were 3 large sofas before the screen in different locations so they did not block the view of the others. To the right was a unit made out of marble and glass, almost as big as the screen, which was a bar. I'm going to put that had a more comprehensive selection of alcoholic beverages than most public houses. To the right was a unit made of marble and glass, almost as big as a screen, that displayed a more comprehensive selection of alcoholic beverages than most public houses. Ronnie gasped. When's movie night? She asked. Whenever you want it, and the England rugby team aren't playing, replied Oakley. He took them back up the stairs and into the kitchen. The door behind led to another room, a combined utility room and a secondary kitchen. A short corridor took them past a plant room to a small bathroom next to a door and a flight of stairs. The door goes into the garage, the stairs lead to my annex, said Oakley. There is nowhere you are forbidden from going, but I would obviously ask you only to go into the annex if I invite you. He took them back into the main kitchen. Through a wide archway at the far end, the opposite end from the snug, was an open plan living room. There was a television on one wall and several large sofas facing and at right angles to it. At the far end, covering the right-hand corner, were some large windows. Were some floor to ceiling windows. These slide out in the summer. At the far end, covering the right-hand corner, were some floor-to-ceiling window panels. Oakley walked over to them and smiled. These slide out of the way. There were more window panels on the right-hand wall that met the first. There were more window panels on the perpendicular wall. These slide out of the way in the summer. There were more window panels on the perpendicular wall. Met the first. As to those, there was a large skylight in them. At the far end, coming in the right-hand corner, was some floor to ceiling. These slide out of the way in the summer. As to these, there's a large skylight in the ceiling, broken only in the middle by an impressive ceiling lamp that was practically a chandelier. Is this the living room? Asked Ronnie with awe. Oakley smiled, taken in by her enthusiasm. No, we call this the garden room. There is a living room and dining room on the other side of the hall. And there is a living room and a dining room on the other side of the hall. He opened a drawer in a unit at the back and pulled out a remote control. He hit a button and the television sprang to life. We have the full Sky television package. You need to have a better understanding of what's going on in the world. So I recommend watching this. He switched the channel over to BBC News. Or if you prefer the cartoon version, there is also Sky News. He turned the television off again. I don't mind which one you watch, but I would ask you to try and watch a bulletin every day. If you are dealing with idiot politicians, which you will be, you will need to have an idea of what is going on. If you watch a half-hour bulletin every day, you will probably know more than they do. He placed the remote back in the drawer. Are you especially aware of what is happening politically? Ronnie shook her head. I lost the last 3 months. Do you know who the Prime Minister is? Ronnie nodded. Unless it's changed since the start of the year, that's something. Do you know who Carl Tucker is? Ronnie nodded vaguely. He's an anti-environmentalist from memory, a rather obnoxious one. Said Oakley with a frown. There's a lot more to him than that. So that's your homework for today. I will ask you again after dinner. He led Ronnie back into the kitchen and through the double doors into the hall. Ronnie had not noticed there was a grand piano tucked away in a corner. Across the beautiful marble floor were 2 sets of double doors, both of which led into the largest living room she'd ever seen. We call this the drawing room, said Oakley. We don't really use it. He led her back out and through another pair of double doors. Dining room, he said again. We tend to use the kitchen or the snug. Back into the hall. Back in the hall. Anyway, I didn't notice there were some rooms on either side of the front door. Oakley showed her both. The one on the left, which was directly below the room that she'd slept in last night, was an impressive study. My office, grinned Oakley. It's not private, so feel free to use it if you need to. The room opposite was an equally splendid library. Up the curved staircase, Ronnie led her into the room on the left. Well, the room was unless it was a suite. It had a reception room, a bedroom which dwarfed the enormous bed, followed by a dressing room and a large bathroom. It was stunning. This is one of your options, said Oakley. I can have this room, if you want it. Special prize for being the first to arrive. He went back into the hall. The room opposite the one she'd slept in was rather like it. I'm just going to say that better. The room opposite the one she slept in the mirror image of it. Dotted around. There were some personal items placed neatly on the dressing table. Marianne's room. Hang on, let's do that. They went back into the hall. The room opposite the one she'd slept in was the mirror image of it. There were some personal items placed neatly on the dressing table. Marianne's room. From the stairs, there was a corridor to the left. 2 more bedrooms down there. The one on this side is Ursula's. The one on the opposite side is for Carruthers. He led her to another flight of steps behind a door she had not noticed near the entrance to the suite that she had been offered. At the top were 2 more bedrooms with a shared bathroom and another pair of living rooms, the furthest of which was done up like done up like another study. Was or you can have this floor, your choice. At the top were 2 more bedrooms and with a shared bathroom, another pair of living rooms, the furthest of which was a working space with a desk. Or you can have this floor, your choice. Ronnie wandered back down both flights of stairs in a bit of a daze. It was all too much. Ursula had said that whatever organisation was backing her had money, but this house must have cost millions. List price when I looked it up because it is a real house. I've used a real house as a basis for the description so I can get the image in my head. And I think it sold for £6.75 million. So yeah, cheap. She walked back down to the snug and picked up her laptop. Ursula was there eating a bowl of porridge. "Good morning, dear," she said. Ronnie sat down. "Morning. This place is unreal. It is rather grand, isn't it, dear?" She noticed that Ursula had a smartphone in her hand and was flicking through some apps. It was not something she'd expected at all. The most complex device she had in her home was an ancient analogue radio, and she looked adept at using it, not a beginner struggling with an unfamiliar gadget. "Swiped right on anyone?" asked Ronnie with a grin. "I'm not using Tinder, dear," said Ursula. The smile vanished from Ronnie's face. "You know what that is?" Ursula waggled her eyebrows. "So, tell me about Carl Tucker." Ursula's lips straightened. "The man is an inconvenience, or a problem, depending on the result of the next general election." "Why?" "Well, you know, whenever anything sensible happens, politically I mean, there's always someone who pushes the other way. Well, like the far right, the likes of Hitler or Nigel Farage." Ursula looked a little nonplussed. "Well, I'm not sure I can say those 2 names in the same sentence, but yes. When you have a political centre ground, or even a swing to the right or left, you have someone who advocates a more extreme view. Carl Tucker represents what you could describe as the anti-green view. Some people argue that we are damaging the planet and creating global warming, but the people that oppose that view say that..." Let's lose the second. "The increase in temperature is just part of a large-scale trend that is repeated every few thousand years. There is some science to back that up, though it would not explain the rapidity of what is happening to our planet at the moment. Mr. Tucker opposes all restrictions based on environmental damage. He spoke extensively in Australia in 2013 in favour of abolishing their carbon tax, which was abolished the following year. He has started a political movement in this country, which is part of a loose alliance with other similar bodies around the world. The group is called the Rubius Victoria." "Why?" asked Ronnie. She had not heard Oakley walked in. "Because he's a pretentious prick," he snarled. I'm going to lose the Latin because that's just bollocks. Why? Asked Ronnie. Because he's a pretentious prick, he snarled. Why red? Well, he's never officially explained it, but in the light spectrum, red is the opposite of green, rather like his opinions. Oh, hello, Itanchi. Bonjour. Also, Ursula chipped in, red has various cultural meanings. For example, in China it represents vitality and fertility, as well as joy and happiness. Most Chinese brides dress in red. I think that's giving him far too much credit, said Oakley. Anyway, madam, he said, glaring at Ronnie, thank you for getting onto your homework. I wanted to know if you wanted... I want to know if you would like. A guided tour of the grounds, or just have a wander and explore them for yourself. There is a square kilometre of... No, there are a few. Square kilometres of woodland behind the house, all secure and available to you at any time. There's even some interface units in there, but I'm sure you'll find those for yourself. Ursula rolled her eyes. He loves using long words. He means there is more than one ancient tree that you can use to communicate with Idrisil when it becomes necessary. I forgot to say, you might want to consider ordering a range of clothes, said Oakley, for when she wants to talk to you again. Ronnie shook her head. I hadn't considered that, and I will explore on my own if that's okay. And I'll explore on my own if that's okay. Of course it is, said Oakley gruffly. Less for me to do. He stomped off towards the entrance hall. He likes you, whispered Ursula confidentially. He has a funny way of showing it. Yes, when he starts being polite, you'll know you've done something wrong. Let's lose the yes. The urge to explore had returned with a vengeance, so Ronnie put on her trainers and went outside. Immediately outside the door that led from the secondary kitchen was a large washing line and a row of 4 wheelie bins, all different colours and larger than one she'd been used to at home. The area was paved and had a 6-foot fence with a gate between her and the main garden. She spent a few minutes walking around the beautiful space. There was a shed a bit further down on her left at the side that was a proper brick and timber build with a solid front door and almost the size of a double garage. She was willing to bet there was a ride-on lawnmower in there, and probably a fridge as well. The garden limits were marked with a waist-high fence. I'm going to say ending with a gate. Ending with a gate. She opened it and stepped through, and the feeling of being drawn somewhere returned. Rather than spend the energy on overriding this urge, rather than waste energy. Rather than waste effort on overriding this urge, she just let it control her footsteps. She wandered for about 10 minutes through the wood, enjoying the fact that it was for her, and also feeling slightly daunted by the prospect of what faced her. She realised that the message she had to deliver was going to be one that would be politically opposed, in some cases very vigorously, especially by groups like the Red Victors and the odious Carl Tucker. It was reassuring that Idrisil was prepared to put all of this effort into preserving the human race when it appeared they were capable of removing from the face of the earth. Just as. Just read that again. It was reassuring that Idrisil was prepared to put all of this effort into preserving the human race when it appeared they were capable of removing them from the face of the earth just as easily, if not more so. She had not noticed the way she was heading, but suddenly she found herself in front of an ancient oak tree. It was much taller than her tree in Sherwood, and the trunk was thicker. Mind you, it was a yew tree, different. Than her yew in Sherwood, and the trunk was thicker. If her tree was capable of sustaining one person, this might be able to preserve several, and she had passed other old yews. Let's lose the and. She had passed several other old yew and oak trees that she reckoned would be capable of taking in people too. She walked attentively up to the foot of the tree and placed her hand gently on the bark. There was a sensation that was similar to the one that she felt when she touched her old yew, but this feeling was somehow more urgent and intense. It was not uncomfortable, but it was different. The surface under her hand was releasing sap, and the bark suddenly rose upwards between her fingers. It did not absorb her hand, but when she removed it there was a slightly raised section with an impression of a handprint on it before it sank back into the tree. She walked carefully around the massive trunk, then realised that the feeling of needing to get outside and go somewhere had fully gone away for the first time since she had arrived at Forest Lodge. The tree had wanted her to come and say hello. Now she had done so, she was free again. Ronnie noticed that there was a small shed in the shadow of the tree. It was not locked, and when she tried the door it opened easily. Inside was an empty clothing rail with several clothes hangers as well as coat hooks on the wall and a boot rack on the floor. There was a light switch in the wall and a bulb came on in the ceiling when she pressed the button. When she pressed it. She flicked it. There were also a pair of rechargeable torches sitting in a charging rack on the wall. She pulled one out. It had a powerful beam and was fully charged. Ronnie spent an hour walking. When she got to the edge of the land owned by the lodge, she found a 10-foot brick wall with spikes at the top. It had motion sensors and security cameras every 10 metres. She waved at one with a smile. The wall was ugly, but she supposed necessary. She also noticed that it was not straight. It weaved in and out of the path of various large trees. So no trees were harmed in the building of the wall. This wall, she thought to herself, very on message. She headed leisurely back to the house, went to the snug to retrieve her laptop and sat in the garden room. Turning on the television, she sat dutifully. She dutifully watched half an hour of television news. There was nothing all that relevant to her today, just a couple of comments about American protesters complaining as their president continued the process of leaving the Paris Climate Agreement. She supposed this was the kind of thing she ought to know about, so she read up on what it aimed to do. She found a breakdown of carbon emissions by country and saw that America was the second highest global contributor behind China, and they were trying to get out of the agreement. Out of the agreement. She felt a cold shiver when she realised this. Idrisil had given her no timescales in their conversation, but she assumed that this was contained in the directives that she had to deliver, that this would be. I suppose this detail. But she assumed that this detail. Would be contained in the directives she had to deliver. And if she failed, everyone she knew might die. It was a sobering thought. When she'd found out she'd be joined by another like her, she decided to wait until he arrived to start looking at the directives. When she had found out she'd be joined by another ambassador, she decided to wait until he arrived to start looking at the directives. It was a sobering thought. When she'd found out that she'd be joined by another ambassador, she'd initially decided to wait until he arrived to start looking at the directives. She now changed her mind. She stood and was about to go and find Oakley when he entered the room. He threw something at her, which she caught instinctively. It was a smartphone. "All our numbers are already programmed in," he said. "If you ever need us, just call. You can make any calls you like, but it would be better not to call anyone you know, for their safety. All outgoing calls are anonymous, by the way." All non-internal. All non-internal outgoing calls are anonymous, by the way. Ronnie muted the television. "Look, I had planned to wait for Mackenzie before I read Idrisel's directives. I've changed my mind. I want to see them now." "I have a PDF," said Oakley, pulling out his phone. He pressed a few buttons, then returned it to his pocket. I've just emailed it to you. You've probably realised that every country will be given their own directives. The ones Mackenzie has to deliver will be very different to yours. Let's use the word very. There is a shared drive which you have access to on your laptop. You can see all of the others as well. You can see all of the others. On there. But I suggest getting used to yours and Mackenzie's before looking at others. At any others. There's a shared drive which you have access to on your laptop. You can see all of the others on there as well. But I suggest you get in before looking at any others. "That makes sense," said Ronnie. Oakley suddenly pointed to the television screen behind her. "Volume now," he said. Ronnie hit a button and could see a man talking into the camera. He was short and wiry with close-cropped ginger hair and a single earring. The name at the bottom of the screen revealed that he was Carl Tucker. "The American president is just shown once again that he will not pander to scaremongers and fools convinced by phony science," he was saying. "The Paris Climate Treaty retards economic growth, and I would ask our government to examine the scientific facts, because if they do, they will also pull out of this unnecessarily restrictive treaty." The picture cut back to a presenter standing outside a power station with large chimney stacks billowing out smoke in the background. Ronnie cut the sound. "And that's the kind of idiot that we are up against," muttered Oakley. "Once we've trained you fully, you will be able to rebut all of his pathetic arguments." He gave a rare smile. "I think you'll do fine. You'll do fine." With that, he turned on his heel and left the room. Ronnie sank back into the large and comfortable sofa, turned the volume back up on the television, and then opened the laptop and Googled the Red Victors. As she'd been told, it was not a political party but more of a pressure group, and Carl Tucker was their figurehead. There were links to YouTube clips of Carl appearing on various TV shows. He'd even once made it onto Question Time, a political question and answer show on the BBC. He had a core of followers in the audience because every time he said something that tied in with his anti-conservation standpoint, he got a round of applause and cheers from a small but vocal group. Other clips showed him being interviewed on news programmes for other television channels, and there was an edited montage from an Australian channel featuring the work he did there in 2013 during the carbon tax debate. In short, he prescribed the opposite of what Idrisil had said that she wanted. Ronnie read through some of the comments beneath the video as was surprised at the vitriol given to anybody who dared to criticise or to challenge or contradict rather than criticise. Challenge or contradict his conclusions. It was as though he had an army of online trolls who laid into anybody who disagreed with him. Ronnie googled the Red Victors supporters, but was unable to find any opinion polls that gave an idea of how many people agreed with Carl Tucker. She was fairly sure that most people... and gave an idea of how many people agreed with Carl Tucker. She was fairly sure that most had heard of him, though. Danny would know who he was, she thought to herself sadly, and so would her parents. The thought of them made her feel sad again. She tried to clear them from her mind, but the thoughts of her dear mother suffering and assuming that she was dead kept resurfacing. How much time had her dad been forced to take off work? All the people she knew, the people that she'd been to school with, the people who'd been her friends and acquaintances, thought she was dead. She imagined the row of condolence cards. Condolences? Condolences. Cards on the mantelpiece of her family home, and it all became too much. She pushed the laptop away from her on the huge sofa. Leaving it on the huge sofa, ran to the main hallway and dashed up the stairs and into the room she'd slept in last night. She brushed past Marianne on the way and threw herself onto the bed. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Ronnie ignored it, and the soft knock came again. When there was still no answer, the door was pushed open. Marianne stepped through carrying a tray, which had a large steaming mug of hot chocolate and a plate with 3 warm cookies on it. They walked over to the bed, set the tray down on the bedside table, and sat down next to Ronnie's shuddering form. Oakley walked past the room and looked in. He saw Marianne sitting on the bed, patting a sobbing Ronnie on the back. Marianne's eyes met Oakley's for a second. He nodded and withdrew, shutting the door behind him. Marianne sat next to Ronnie. Kind of already said that. Marianne gently squeezed Ronnie's left shoulder. We do understand, lovely. This is so massive it can hardly have sunk in yet. Ronnie turned over. I don't want Oakley to think I'm a weak little girl. Nobody thinks that, said Marianne soothingly. Oakley said the moment he met you he knew you'd be okay. Mackenzie on the hand. We are worried he won't cope at all. Ronnie sat up, and Marianne handed her the mug of chocolate, which she accepted gratefully. How did you know? I didn't. I saw you upset, and nurses told me cocoa and cookies were a way to cheer you up. Marianne picked up the plate and wafted it under Ronnie's nose. I just warmed them. They're delicious. Ronnie took one and bit into it. The sweet, sugary taste filled her mouth, and the soft cookie crumbled as soon as she took a bite. Oakley sometimes comes across as a gruff old git who doesn't care about anyone. It's just a front. But I wear my heart on my sleeve. If things become too much and need to talk, you know where I am. My room is the one opposite this one. Ronnie took another bite of the chocolate. Are you always here? Do you get days off? Technically I do, said Marianne. So does Mr. Oakley. But things are about to happen. The reason for everything being in place is about to be realised. You wouldn't believe the infrastructure's been in place for decades leading up to this moment. Ronnie gave a small smile. So no pressure then. It's not all on you, lovely, said Marianne with another smile. We are here to save humanity from itself. And remember, this is happening in every country in the world, right now. You were not the first ambassador to be delivered. According to Oakley, you weren't even the 20th. So like I said, it's not all on you. We are just here to do our bit. It's a huge jigsaw. We, not just you, we are but one piece. They sat in silence for a few moments. Ronnie occasionally took a sip of the hot chocolate and nibbled on the warm cookie. Gradually the sadness retreated somewhat. It was still there and would be part of her for a very long time, probably forever, but she could manage it. She had to. Ronnie stood, and Marianne did as well. Ronnie gave him a grateful hug, then left the room. Marianne looked at the remaining cookie, smiled, and stuffed it into their mouth. Homer Simpson styly. That doesn't say that, obviously. Ronnie spent the rest of the day watching the news. She ordered a few more items for her to use, including some drawing pads and pencils. She dearly missed her collection of line drawings. She just wanted to look through the pictures she'd drawn. wanted to look through the pictures she'd drawn herself by the family home more recently when she'd been at university. The stack of pads were her favourite possessions, and while she was sure she could arrange them for them to be collected, she also knew their removal from her family home would hurt her parents even more than circumstances already had. She would just have to draw some more, that was all. The clothing arrived later that same day, which Ronnie was very impressed by. It even included the extra items she had ordered, the coats, walking boots, and the larger clothing sizes she'd added at the last minute. She decided to take the bedroom suite on the first floor, as she was sure Mackenzie would appreciate having the space to himself on the second. She had spent a few minutes hanging her new clothes in the impressive dressing room in her suite. They filled a tiny portion of the available wardrobe space. All of them were sitting down to dinner when Oakley's phone rang. It was almost dark outside, and Marianne had made them a tasty vegetable lasagna. Even the pasta sheets were homemade. There must be such a thing. Oh, loads of them, okay. Nope, didn't mean to do that. Pressed the wrong button, you idiot. Right. Just as they were all tucking in, Oakley received his call. Ronnie could see Carruthers on the call identification. I have to take this, said Oakley. He stood up and walked away from them towards the garden room. Within a few minutes he was back. That was Carruthers. Mackenzie's about to be released. I need to go and get them both. When? Ronnie swallowed a mouthful of food. I can get there in 4 hours, so I'm tempted to go tonight. Oakley glanced down at Ronnie. I don't want to wait until the day after, like I did for you. May I ask why? Because you're not emotionally unstable, I'm not so sure about Mackenzie. Marion interjected, I've told you not to write him off. You've not even met the poor lad. Oakley shrugged. It's an 8-hour round trip, probably more. He can't do that by himself. Marion drew the lips together tightly. I have to, really, said Oakley. I'm coming with you. Ronnie pushed her almost empty plate away. Oakley shook his head. There's no need. You've been up all day. Maybe I can drive there and you can drive back. I'll be fine. Marion stood up and started clearing the plates away. Accept the help that's offered, you miserable old sod. Ursula winced at the language. Listen to Marianne, she's talking sense. I'm not even going to reference it. I'm going to let the audience wince without me telling them to. Listen to Marion, she's talking sense. Marion glared across at Oakley. Please, Gordon. Perhaps Ronnie can help the lad. You're not always a soothing presence, as well you know. Oakley rolled his eyes and shook his head. All right, Ronnie, you can drive there. We might as well go now. Mackenzie's clothes are already in the car. Good, said Ronnie, standing up, clapping her hands and smiling. Maybe we can stop and get him some underwear on the way. Because he forgot to get her underwear, so she's assuming he's done the same for Mackenzie. Right, that's fine. What time is it? How long have I been going? Hour and a half. I do want to at least read through the next chapter. Well, let's firstly grammarize this one. Just after sunset. Yeah, that's a fair comment. Yep, that's fine. Oh, oh. Yeah, I think you're talking to me. Yeah, slow but sure. I'm not quite as in the mood for this as I was yesterday. I'm not going to be doing 6 hours worth. But I'm going to get this chapter signed off in this session, and then I'm probably going to have to stop because I need to go and collect some dry cleaning, like my suit, because I'm going to a graduation on Saturday in Phoenix. And yeah, so that should be ready by now. So I'll go and grab that, and then I'll come back and do another chapter later. Well, I don't mind a sandwich or something. Vegan. Hang on. Okay, so I have used the right word for for my iteration of the language. That's cool. Ooh. Okay, so dismissed. was an understatement. Rather grand, isn't it, dear? Right. So let's. Oh no, wrong button. I need to download that. Right, and that's chapter 10. Now, my memory is that 11 needs a little more work. I think I need to put a little more explanation about why Mackenzie. I think Oakley doesn't explain in the version I've written. Oakley doesn't preempt Ronnie that things are not going to be as simple as her collection was. So, but do I want to start it now? I don't know. Let's have a look. Well, let's just drag chapter 10 into the edited folder, which is getting bigger, which is nice. Come on. Right. So yeah, once I've done chapter 11, I'm a quarter of the way through, because including the prologue, there's 43 chapters plus a prologue, so 44 chapters really. And this is chapter 11. Do I want to start it now? Mr. Oakley was apprehensive, at least to start with Ronnie driving the Mercedes. He was more nervous when she'd hardly driven towards Snitch past her driving test the previous year. Once he saw how careful she was on the roads leading towards Keswick and the M6, he started to relax. "Tell me about Mackenzie," said Ronnie. They were now heading towards the Scottish border, and Oakley seemed in no hurry to sleep. "Well, some of his background will be familiar too," said Oakley with a yawn. "He's a couple of years older than you. Carruthers was waiting for when he was born and found him in the same way that Ursula found you. He gave birth to authority. He was placed with a foster family, the Stuarts. They'd been able to have kids and adopted him. They lived quite a long distance away from where he was born, which was not ideal. He ended up in a small town just north of Inverness. His mother died Sorry, I'm gabbling again. His mother died whilst giving birth to the first biological son, and his father ended up falling apart." That's understandable. Quite. The problem was when he met another woman and married her. She was a heavy drug user, so Mackenzie and his brother Aidan had taken him into care when they were quite young. His father died a few years later of an overdose, and his stepmother was more interested in drugs. The boys were separated and bounced from foster family to foster family. At 16, the system effectively spat them out. Mackenzie became an emotional wreck, and Aidan ended up on drugs himself. Aidan is in and out of prison for petty offences. He went to school as soon as he reached 18. Mackenzie went straight into work as soon as he finished school. He was an apprentice working in fisheries, having time off with emotional issues, so they sacked him. I've seen a medical report. He's been on antidepressants since he was 14, 6 years now. Poor bugger was homeless until we stepped in. We tried to help. We put a roof over his head. We refused to leave the Inverness area where his brother is in prison. He's got a flat in Inverness itself. He does have grandparents, but they only cared about him enough to be indignant that he didn't have a roof over his head, not enough to actually offer him one. Ronnie moved the car into the middle lane to overtake a slow lorry. "It sounds awful." The main problem was Carruthers. His job was to keep an eye on what was going on and report back. This is the bit I need to expand. Remember, it was Carruthers. His job was to keep an eye on what was going on and report back, but he always said everything was under control. When I joined a few years back, I was horrified by what I saw. His job was to know what was happening with Mackenzie's life and course correct, as it were, where necessary. Like Ursula, although she didn't have to get involved. Always knew exactly was happening in your life, even before you met her again a couple of years back. Obfuscated, is that a word? It is a word. Let me just check it means what I think it means. Right. That feels a lot more of a better explanation, but let me just read it back. The main problem was Carruthers. His job was to keep an eye on what was going on and report back, but he always said everything was under control. When I joined a few years back, I was horrified by what I saw. His job was to know what was happening in Mackenzie's life and course correct. Course correct where necessary, like Ursula did for you, although she didn't have to get involved at all. But whenever I asked her about you, she always knew exactly what was happening in your life, even before you met again a couple of years ago. I began to realise when I probed Carruthers for more information about Mackenzie, he obfuscated. It became apparent that he hadn't got a clue what was happening. Hadn't for years. I looked into it. I discovered that Mackenzie was homeless. We managed to discreetly find him a home, enabled him to jump the waiting list for counselling. Oakley looked across at Ronnie. You and Ursula are a model of example of what was supposed to happen. Carruthers has met Mackenzie down badly, and if I'm honest, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do what we need him to do. Through no fault of his own, I hasten to add. Ronnie frowned. And what's your B plan if he can't? And what's your B plan if he can't? Oakley looked sideways at her. You. I'll deliver 2 lots of directives. Hopefully it won't come to that, he shook his head. I'm sorry if it does impact you. Arbor Associates really dropped the ball with Mackenzie. I don't know if what I was able to do was too little, too late. Ronnie frowned. Arbor Associates? It's where the money comes from. It was set up hundreds of years ago and has been accumulating wealth for all that time to be able to do what we're doing now. Set up by? Groups acting out the will of Idrisil. Ronnie moved the car back into the inside lane. So you're an employee? You're not from a tree like I am? Oakley chortled. No. Ronnie smiled. I would love to see the confirmation that convinced you of all of this. She paused. Who recruited you? The chairman of Arbor Associates, Lord Farnborough. You will meet him. You will meet him. He's the man that has arranged your... He's the man that's arranged your appointment with the Right Honourable Derek Cockle right at the end of the month. That thought gave Ronnie an anticipatory shiver. In a few short weeks, she was going to have to deliver Idrisil's directives to the Minister of the Environment. Is there anything I can do to help Mackenzie? Oakley shook his head, a grim look on his face. Not really. Look, you've got a head on your shoulders. I've never had an occasion to worry about you. Just keep what you know. Just keep... Be there for him. Oakley shook his head, grim on his face. Just be there for him. Reassure him. You've got a good head on your shoulders. I've never had an occasion to worry about you. Even when you saw me bawling my eyes out earlier, Oakley smiled. We know what we've asked you to do is tough. As far as your brain understands, 3 days ago you were at university and everything was normal. Of course, these next few weeks... time is it? Will be difficult. I believe you understand. You understand that we have asked you to cut off your former associations because it will be better, safer for them. I have no idea if Mackenzie will be strong enough to do that, and if he doesn't, it's going to make things extraordinarily complicated. How can you help? Try to help him understand. Being in the same situation means he may turn to you for guidance. Turn left here. They were passing a turning for Carlisle. Why? We need petrol. I'm not going to waste money paying motorway service station prices at a supermarket half a mile up the road. Is it a decent sized one? Asked Ronnie. I think so. If it sells clothes, I'm going to get underwear and socks for Mackenzie whilst you get petrol. I guess you forgot to buy him any. Oakley smiled and pulled out his wallet. You'll need this then. It was his credit card. Don't go mad. That's better. The petrol station was at the opposite end of the retail park. That's just unnecessary. Once they'd filled up petrol, I spent a few minutes walking around the supermarket's tiny clothing department to look for underwear, trying to work out what would be least embarrassing for Mackenzie. Plain black trunks seemed like the best idea, and she went for matching socks. She also bought a drink for both her and Oakley, and they set off again. Once they hit the motorway, Oakley downed his Sprite, reclined the chair somewhat, and closed his eyes, instructing Ronnie to wake him when they were 10 minutes from their destination. Ronnie turned on the radio and listened to the news headlines on Radio 4. Derek Cockerell Wright. I haven't said who he is. Environment Minister. Derek Cockerell Wright, the Environment Minister, was being interviewed because of some tremors near a government-sanctioned fracking project. He insisted the process had nothing to do with the tremors and that it was a coincidence. He sounded oily and insincere, groaning. Ronnie switched. This was the man that she had to talk to. Right, let's do that again. Ronnie turned on the radio and listened to the news headlines on Radio 4. Derek Cockerell Wright, the Environment Minister, was being interviewed because of some tremors near a government-sanctioned fracking project. He insisted the process had nothing to do with the tremors and that it was a coincidence. He sounded oily and insincere. This was the man that she had to talk to at the end of the month. At the end of the month. Groaning, Ronnie switched across to Radio 1. I need to get my stuff. Do you know what? I'm going to call it a day there. I will be back later because I need to get this chapter signed off today as well. I don't know whether it'll be this afternoon or this evening. Yes. So once again, I haven't had masses of interaction on this one, and I've only got, I think, a couple of viewers, so I'm not going to raid out of this one today. But thank you to AngelFay87, thank you to Atanchi, and thank you for Bow Street Society for interacting today. I'll be back at some point to, at the very least, complete this chapter and maybe start chapter 12. We shall see how I feel. So, yep. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.